Hey lovelings, I'm back already with another video. Since I'm on this role of reintroducing myself and sharing all the epiphanies I've been having lately, I'll go ahead and talk about chaos magic. I have it on my mind. I've been having some big realizations about how I should probably talk about chaos magic way more than I do online. And in fact, I've been offering this modality I've developed called symbol speak for the past 3 years, and it's been great. Like, people really pick up on it quickly, the whole premise that life is a literal dream, everything in life is symbolic and can be interpreted like the symbols in a dream to understand why things are manifesting in your life the way they are. And then what I do in my symbol speak sessions with people is, after we've talked about the meaning behind the situation they'd like to change, then we go into taking remedial symbolic action, which means approaching the problem with some sort of symbolic ritual or ceremony, amulet or talisman, vow or spell, or some combination thereof. So basically, I teach people how to use magic to change situations in their lives. Now, I'm realizing after 2 and change years of marketing symbol speak and people not getting it, people being like, what is it? And then only understanding it after we've worked on it together and they've experienced it directly, I probably would have saved myself so much time trying to get through to people, trying to help people understand what this is, if I had just marketed it as chaos magic to begin with. Because that's what it is. That's what it is to me. Now, I don't know what gatekeeper asses might be watching this and thinking, that's not what chaos magic is, you don't know anything, you're a poser. Like, I don't care. I don't care what you think chaos magic is if that's the attitude you have. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what it is to me and how it's been effective in my life. So, also, it's not just gatekeepers watching this. Hi, everyone else who's normal. If you don't know what chaos magic is, or if you have a slight idea, just wherever you may be on the journey, I'm going to define it the best way I can to try to anticipate all of these different audiences who might be watching. So, first we've got to address the 2 elephants in the room, the word chaos and the word magic. I love the symbolism of that. Look, at one hand is in the light and the other is in the dark. Okay, let's talk about chaos magic. So chaos is a very demonized word, and so is magic. So right there may be a psychological block against what I'm about to say. Totally understandable. So I'm just going to tell you the honest truth of what those words mean to me and why I love calling myself a chaos magician, even though my way of practicing it might not match up with what other people think it is. So chaos, right? My introduction to chaos was not through the occult, it was through mathematics. I was like a math wizard when I was younger, and I went ahead and took it upon myself to learn about more advanced mathematics when I was in high school, and I started educating myself on chaos mathematics. So, the underlying formulas and patterns and order beneath dynamic systems like the weather, for example. When we're talking about a system where there's many moving parts and small changes at one point in time might lead to massive effects later on in time, then we're talking about a chaotic system. So that's why the weather is easier to predict within near range future dates, but like the further you project out into the future, the harder it is to anticipate how that dynamic system is going to behave. That's because chaos mathematics is the study of that fluid, fluctuating, unpredictable behavior of energy. So as that pertains to magic and psychology and all of that, to me, chaos means making small changes up close, right here inside of oneself, to then have massive effects in the greater outer world, expanding beyond oneself. That's about as simple as I know how to make it. Now, I know that the word chaos is very charged with negative meanings, like disorder and destruction and darkness, and there may be some elements of chaos that are like that, and I'm not going to just say, no, chaos is all good. Like, it's got its aspects that are challenging, right? Because when we're talking about free energy, essentially, because that's what I believe chaos math is really the study of. It's the study of how fixed energy becomes free energy. So that can feel challenging to the psyche when you are very deeply rooted in this material world with its reliable laws of physics and order and structure. You know that the sun comes up and then it goes down, and it'll basically be predictably rising and falling every day for the foreseeable future. When you're very situated in this fixed material world of matter that is dense and slow moving, the behavior of free energy that is unpredictable can be extremely daunting, frightening, triggering. And we love the word triggering here because it means we're being presented with an opportunity to see an aspect of ourselves we've been repressing, like our shadow, like a fear that we have or something like that. So chaos to me is a word describing free energy. And magic, I define it this way. Magic is the intentional, willful, purposeful application of consciousness to change oneself in the inner world in a way that then begets change in the outer world. I'll try to simplify that. Magic is when you change your mind to change your reality, basically. Now, you might be thinking, that's just manifestation, and you're right. You're right. It is. I'm not afraid to say I think magic and manifestation are basically the same thing. It's just that magic is more about the great work. It's more about unifying all divided oppositional parts of yourself and creating a unified being, an illuminated being who has no shadows and darkness within oneself. This is the great work, to become enlightened. Quite literally illuminated, enlightened. It's a real state of being where you actually achieve your light body. Now, this is where I may depart from most magicians. I think there's a general, magic means a lot of things to a lot of people. I don't think you're gonna hear the same definition of magic from one occultist to another. There's so much infighting, so much division, so much gatekeeping about what magic even is. So again, I'm just going to speak from my heart and make it make sense in the best way I know how. To me, I think if you think magic is just about getting what you want and manifesting, and you take that route of like, I'm going to do a spell to get a bunch of money, and you aren't interested in the shadow work side of it, the gnosis side of it, the getting to know yourself side of it, then you are setting yourself up for an incredibly rude awakening. I have never seen someone experiment with manifestation and just manifest things with ease all of the time, never miss, and not eventually end up confronting their shadow. I have never seen it. If you play around with reality creation methods, you are going to encounter your own dark side eventually. And this is the shit that makes a whole bunch of new age girlies go running back to Jesus, or I should say egregore Jesus, because there's the Jesus that you learn about in the institution of the church, which is weaponized against all other spiritual traditions. And that's the Jesus that would condemn magicians and occultists. And then there's actual Jesus, the one who taught that we are gods, that if you believe that something is yours already, it is yours. The Jesus who was teaching literal physical immortality and enlightenment. That Jesus was a magician in the sense of consciously, willfully applying his states of being, his inner world, his mind, in order to affect reality around him. So I have lots to say about Jesus being a magician. I love him so much, and a lot of magicians do. So for any of you who might be watching and think that Christianity and magic are incompatible, they're really, 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 really not. In fact, I believe Christianity is an alchemical endeavor. To become Christ-like, to become illuminated in that way is, again, the great work, unifying opposites within oneself. I believe Jesus would approve of chaos magic. So let's get back to some of my unpopular opinions about chaos magic, which is already an unpopular magic. So there are some prevailing notions about what it is or what it has to be. And I'll say right now on that note, if you think chaos magic has to be whatever Osman Spare said it is, whatever Robert Anton Wilson says it is, whatever Grant Morrison says it is, politely, I think you are... I don't think there's a polite way to say this. I think you're really out of touch with your own gnosis. I think if you're following someone else's authoritative opinion on what magic is or is supposed to be for you, and that's how you define magic, then you are not sourcing your knowledge of magic from within yourself. So that's what I believe I have been doing for the past, however long I've been a chaote, as they say, a chaos magician. I started educating myself on chaos math, and then that turned into spiritual epiphanies and revelations that I wasn't expecting from studying mathematics. And then that turned into this whole philosophy of chaos magic that I have now. And so when I talk about chaos magic, I'm not just parroting or regurgitating something some other chaos magician from the past said. Okay? They are not my authorities. I do not answer to them, and neither do you. And even if there's something in my definition of chaos magic you're not resonating with, that is your right to feel and source your own gnosis and lead yourself to what you believe the truth is. I can't do that for you. So to bring it back to this idea of like the nuances between magic and manifestation, magic can indeed, well, some people defend chaos magic by saying it is results-based magic, right? Like it's about, like, you'll know it's working if you effectively manifest things in reality. And I do believe there's truth to that. I do believe that there is an objective measure of a magician, but I don't believe material things are necessarily the end-all be-all of a magician's potency, efficacy. Again, like, you're in for a rude awakening if you think magic is just about, like, getting what you want in the physical world. Because this is the great work we're talking about, usually, I mean, what I've seen in other people and what I've seen in myself on my own magician's journey, the pursuit of material things does inevitably lead you to the crossroads where you have to decide, are you going to keep deluding yourself that the end-all be-all of reality is material things, or are you going to actually bear fruit within? Because when people hear things like, by their fruits you will know them, meaning like you'll know a magician by how many material things they've accumulated, they think that that's all physical, but the progression I've observed has been, eventually after you've manifested like money for the 1,000th time, by changing your state of being, you realize the money was never what you wanted, it was a feeling. You wanted the feeling of being free, of being relieved, of feeling satisfied and content. And eventually you'll realize you don't even have to manifest anything in the outer world to feel that. You can just feel that. And whether or not you get the money from changing your state of being around money is beside the point. It's just like, if you get the money, it's just like maybe a bonus, unless you're like so detached at that point that you're like, I genuinely don't care if anything changes in my outer world because I effectively changed within. That is the mark, I think. That is the mark of a genuine magician. The one who realizes it's not about the so-called outer world. It's not about proving themselves to anyone outside of themselves. It's about changing within. And so my journey with chaos magic has been, it started for me, like most people, as a way to like have control of everything and get what I want. And I have indeed manifested plenty of things. Free ride to college, living in my dream city, doing my dream job right now, my soulmate, I actually am living the dream, so to speak. And I'm blissful about that, but the bliss came first. Because eventually on my journey, I realized that the real fruits of my work are internal. So I want to paint a picture for you of the kind of person I used to be at the beginning of this journey. Miserable, traumatized, self-pitying, a victim through and through. Everyone was my abuser. My parents were my abuser. My other family members were my abusers. My multiple exes were my abusers. I could go on and on and on. I was just at the mercy of everyone else. I had no will of my own. I had no sense of identity, and I was not in touch with gnosis within. So everything was out to get me. The outer world had nothing to do with my inner states. It was happening to me, right? And along this journey, I have come to accept that there is this thing called radical self-responsibility, where instead of hypothetically, I'll just say, I decided to accept that everything, no exceptions, in my outer world came from inside me. Even world events, even modern technologies, even natural disasters. I am speaking to you as someone who survived a historic hurricane in Asheville. And I watched someone die on day one of the aftermath of the hurricane. It was the most uprooting, unsettling, disturbing experience of my adult life. And yet, that was the experience that showed me that everything out there comes from in here. Because leading up to the hurricane, I had maybe 4 or 5 solid weeks of internally feeling like a whirlwind. And you can ask any of my friends who I spoke to at that time of my life, and they will tell you I was constantly saying to them, I feel like a whirlwind. I feel like a whirlwind. My inner world is just like spinning and spinning, like I'm spiraling emotionally. I feel so unstable. I feel so unsteady. And then what manifested from that state of being was, this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm getting a package. The Symbols and Signs. It's a portable vocal booth courtesy of my darling soulmate. Thank you, Ed. I wonder what the symbolism of me receiving that at the moment I was saying what I was saying is. I'll let you guys interpret that in the comments. So I was saying, this might sound like a joke, but after weeks of feeling that way, like I am a whirlwind, I ended up somehow, I cannot explain to you how this happened, but I somehow ended up with 5 separate blenders in my possession. Like, I just realized one day as I was like in my kitchen sorting through my appliance cabinet, like, wait a second, when did I get all these blenders? So whirlwind, made physically manifest, that was the first omen that my inner state was begetting my outer state, but I hadn't put it together yet. And then Hurricane Helene happened. What greater whirlwind is there than a hurricane coming so far inland and flooding the mountain you live on that it just defies logic, and you have to accept that there's something here. It's not a meaningless coincidence, right? There's no accidents in this universe. So Hurricane Helene, which means light, by the way. Helene means light, like that illuminated the situation. This light storm came into my life and forced me to accept that everything out there started in here. And ever since then, I have been radically self-responsible for my life. I was estranged from my mother before the hurricane. Afterwards, I decided my mother is me. Everything I don't like about her started in here. I know that's like hard to conceive of if you've never heard this kind of ideology before, but I decided that my mother didn't birth me, I created her. She is a projection from my inner world. So when she says shit I don't like, when she does shit I don't like, now I go inward and I'm like, I wonder why I did that. Now, if you have a strained relationship with anyone in your life, I know you're not going to want to hear that, but I'm telling you, it has brought immense peace to me, because I am no longer at the mercy of people outside of myself, and I finally know where to go if I don't like something out there. I go in and I ask, where did that come from? And I meet the parts of myself I've repressed and pushed into the shadows. I meet them with curiosity and love and openness, and I welcome them back into the embrace of unity. And this is how I've been unifying myself internally, right? Which is magic. So, I know I just said a lot there. That let's get back to chaos magic, right? Like, what is that? Why does it matter that we call it chaos magic and not some other form of magic? So, like I said, I have my way of defining chaos magic. You may have heard other people conflate it with sigil magic, which is when you draw a special figure like spontaneously and then absorb it into your subconscious by destroying it. Like that, I skipped a whole bunch of steps there. You can look up what sigil magic is somewhere else, but some people think chaos magic necessarily involves sigils, but that's not necessarily true. Some people think, furthermore, you must masturbate on those sigils, and if you are a sigil masturbator, I have a quick side note for you. Like everything else in magic, the act of coming on a sigil is just symbolic, and you can achieve the same efficacy of sigil masturbation by actually just holding the image of the sigil in your mind's eye and drawing your sexual energy up towards it so that you internally come on the sigil. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying these words. Like, anyway, I hope you're still with me at this point. Whatever, I'm just gonna speak my truth from now on, and like, the people who speak my language will, you know, they'll pick up what I'm putting down, so to speak. So, now that we're talking about the symbolic nature of magic, this is what I really wanted to talk about. When I talk about symbol speak, when I talk about life being a dream, and when I talk about doing magic, right? Since everything out there started in here, and the only way to change things out there is to change things in here, the way some people facilitate that process of changing their inner states, changing beliefs, changing feeling states, changing being states, is by using symbols. So like props. So when you think of the classic ceremonial magician who puts on a special robe and carries a scepter and basically acts the part of a wizard while they say a certain incantation in Latin and all of that, everything they're doing, every element of that scene is symbolic. And the purpose of all those tools and props is that it's not those objects that hold the power. You don't need, oh, let me plug in my laptop. You don't need certain materials or herbs or metals or grimoires or anything to accomplish your magic ritual. You need only your own state of consciousness, and if you're finding it difficult to bring your consciousness to a certain state of being, the props can help, but they are not the source of the power. They are simply something that kind of like smooths the neural pathway for you. So I could make a whole separate video about the effect of ritual and ceremony on the psyche. In fact, I probably will do that, because that's a big part of what it is I do when I work with people. You know, I teach people magic. I teach people how to do this for themselves, and that brings me to the sovereign aspect of chaos magic. So to me, chaos magic really, besides just being about free energy, it's about sovereignty, which is why I emphasized so strongly in the beginning that I am a self-initiated, self-sourced, gnostic kind of magician. Everything I know about how to do magic came from direct experience. I'm not saying I've never read a magic book or never learned from anybody else, but ultimately what I decide is true for me, it has to come down to whether or not I've experienced it myself. So, which is why I'm wary of reading other people's opinions about magic and what works and what doesn't work. Like, I'm gonna find out for myself, and that's the way it goes. To be a sovereign magician I don't belong to a coven, no one else initiated me, I initiated myself, is to radically claim your power and take responsibility for every outcome of your life. No exceptions. The same way that everything out there is a manifestation from your inner world, all of the consequences of your magic are your responsibility too. So this is another thing. Some people, even with just manifestation, not even like the frilliness of magic, but anytime someone's attempting to affect reality, they're going to have to confront their own power and the consequences of said power. And I'm going to use the example of this phenomenon of New Age girlies like mass migrating to egregore Jesus. Some people can't handle finding out how powerful they are. They might, do a manifestation method, magic ritual, what have you. Something goes wrong, like they end up having like sleep paralysis, or they end up getting hurt somehow as a result of what they did, and then they immediately, I've seen this so often, they go, oh my God, I must have been messing with demons and I didn't even realize it, and then they go running back to Jesus, and that's it, that's the end of the story. There's no nuance, there's no taking of responsibility. It's just, oh, I messed with the dark side and let me go purify myself here and stay in the light. And the instinct to stay in the light is good, like light, good, obviously, but you can't escape your shadow forever. If you are confronted with your shadow, because that's all it is. Anytime something goes wrong from magic, it was you who did that. The instinct to blame some demon or force of darkness outside of yourself is immature. It is victimhood. It is not sovereignty. It is not you being in your power. It is you wanting to hand off responsibility to someone or something else. And if that's the mentality you're in, magic is not for you. Manifestation is not for you. Why even bother, like, engaging with reality if you still believe reality is like out to get you, or it's happening separate from you, right? So I think the most fundamental thing about any of these practices is you have to understand it's all you, baby boo. There's no escaping the self. You are immersed in yourself at all times. And so, let me just pause here. I wonder if there's anything I forgot to mention about chaos magic. In conclusion, for now, chaos magic is free energy magic. It's sovereign magic, which is really what distinguishes it from ceremonial magic or magic traditions that emphasize tradition, doing things a certain way, following certain rules and steps, like, reading out of a grimoire and copying what it says to do. Ceremonial magic is very, like, I think of it as like a fixed modality where there's a certain way you do things and you have to be initiated a certain way, and I feel it's the antithesis to chaos magic, where you are essentially making up your own magical practices using your own intuition and gnosis. So I think of chaos magic as the ultimate magical practice of sovereignty. And the reason it's magic and not just manifestation is because it utilizes symbols to engage with, or let me put it this way. Symbols are utilized to bridge the gap between the inner world and outer world. So first, recognizing the thing you want to change in the outer world, recognizing that that thing is symbolic of something going on in here, and the only way to change what you're seeing out there is to change it in here. And you can use symbols to do that, like ceremony, ritual, talisman, amulet, spell, vow. Any of those symbolic actions or activities can help facilitate the process of changing yourself within, so that change happens without, but then eventually along this journey you'll come to realize there was never a difference in the first place, and that's the cosmic joke. So if you're curious now about chaos magic based on everything I just said and all that jazz, then go to my website. I have an offering called 1-to-1 Symbol Speak Coaching, which I'm thinking I should rename to Chaos Magic Coaching, because that is what it is. Yeah, I guess that's it. I love you, lovelings. Thanks for listening.